Want to get a check on the U.S. Open. You know, Rory McIlroy's had 6 straight U.S. Open top 10 finishes, including back-to-back runner-ups. Now he's in the tournament when his Grand Slam hopes all began as he tries to win it for the first time since he picked up that first major back in 2011. Unfortunately for Rory, round one, maybe not going the way you want to. Look at that front 9, 5 bogeys, including a double bogey there on 8. Did clean things up on the other side with birdieing 2 of those first 3 holes on the back 9, but certainly some work to do if Rory is going to finish at the top of the leaderboard, currently sitting at +4. Let's go out to Oakmont, where we find our CBS Sports golf analyst Patrick McDonald. Patrick, it's just seemed like ever since Rory got the Masters out of the way, that's it. That was kind of the focus, and that's kind of represented here in this opening round. What do you make of it, especially those 5 bogeys?
He did mention early in the week that he's been struggling for motivation. He didn't realize how difficult it was going to be after the Masters to kind of get back into the swing of things. And you've seen it with his results, especially in Canada last weekend, not even making the cut, shooting that second round 78 at TPC Toronto. But his results today, it was really just what this golf course gives these guys. The back 9 here at Oakmont, there are a couple birdie opportunities. Rory McIlroy took advantage of number 11, made a nice little bonus birdie from just about 20 feet. He took advantage of the par 5 12th. He got through that side in bogey-free fashion, and then he made like a stereotypical vintage Rory McIlroy bogey on number 1. It just seemed to take the wind out of his sails. He was in the middle of the fairway with a bucko 5 wedge in hand, and he just laid the sod over one, really short of the green, unable to get up and down. And then from there, you get into the meat of the golf course. Had some trouble driving the golf ball on number 4. We saw him in the high stuff, did very well to make bogey there, a good bogey there. And then the big one, number 8, very difficult hole, as we know, the longest par 3 in U.S. Open history, carding a double bogey. But if you're Rory McIlroy, you say, hey, I'm 4 over, I beat the field average. This golf course is probably going to get more difficult as the afternoon wave gets onto the golf course, and I think I'm going to be in an okay spot heading into tomorrow, but that stretch to end has to be making him feel pretty bad right now.
Yeah, just not what you want to see on the scorecard there. Bryson DeChambeau dealing with much of the same as we look at his round 1. He also has 5 bogeys, but they're sort of separated there between the front and the back. We know, Patrick, that DeChambeau has the nickname Mad Scientist for a reason. I joked with you earlier on 12 when he was just bouncing the ball from rough to rough, and somehow he was able to salvage it there for bogey, but could have been so much worse. How does his style of play bode towards playing at Oakmont, or does it? Is this kind of what you expected to see from him in round 1?
It does bode well. His driver just gives him such a tremendously high floor in the U.S. Open. We think back to the 90s, early 2000s. The U.S. Open was all about accuracy. Nowadays, it's all about hitting it as far as possible, and that is Bryson DeChambeau to a T. And I think Bryson is probably very disappointed in his round because he played maybe the 4 easiest holes, the short par 4 second, the short par 4 17th, and the 2 par 5s in 1 over par fashion. If you tell him, hey, you can play those holes in 2 under and the rest of the golf course in 3 over par like he did, he'd probably take that cadence. But unfortunately, he was greenside there on number 12 in 2, mind you, at even par for his round, and he's walking off the 18th green at 3 over instead. I think the good news for Bryson, like I mentioned, there's plenty of juice left to squeeze out of his game. His short game wasn't stellar. His putting wasn't great either. He had a 3-putt on number 1 for bogey, a 3-putt on number 9 for bogey. It seemed like every time he was in a spot of bother, he was leaving himself 4 to 8 feet above the hole. But also a good news for Bryson DeChambeau is his iron play, which has hindered his chances at the Masters and at the PGA Championship, came to life today. New set of clubs in the bag. Looked like they acquitted themselves quite nicely. If he cleans up the short game like we saw in number 12 and the putting from 4 to 8 feet, he'll be in okay shape.
Just a quick note, this was his worst opening U.S. Open round since 2018. So he currently sits at, I believe, 3 over for Bryson DeChambeau. So some work to be done, but to your point, Patrick, he can figure it out if anyone can out there. Let's talk about the defending champion in Xander Schoffley, who's finished top 15 in all 8 of his U.S. Open appearances, but got a bit of work to do as well as we take a look at his first round there. Looks like he finished 2 over 72. Kind of, again, much of the same. We're seeing a theme here, Patrick. This course is very hard to play, even for some of the best out there like Xander Schoffley.
It is, and all these guys are playing the same holes well, and they're playing all the same holes poorly. And for Xander Schoffley, I mean this as a compliment. It was the most unspectacular round of 72 I've seen. And you mentioned the 8 straight top 15 finishes, 8 top 15 finishes in his U.S. Open career, mind you, has never finished outside that mark. And today was just really emblematic of a guy who understands how to play major championship golf, because we're going to see a lot of guys boot away their U.S. Open championships today. You can lose a golf tournament on Thursday. Xander Schoffley kept himself in this golf tournament on Thursday. He had a couple of tee shots in fairway bunkers, led to a couple of sixes. He had a 3-putt bogey there on 13 from the middle of the green, 35 feet, not great, but he finished in a flurry. He finished, unlike Rory McIlroy, unlike Bryson DeChambeau, on a high note. He took advantage of the par 4 17th. He made a bonus birdie there from distance on the par 4 18th, a very difficult closing hole. And all of a sudden, you look up and Xander Schoffley is 2 under, only a half dozen back behind JJ Spahn, and in position again to contend at a U.S. Open.
And I want to fix that. It was Bryson that won the U.S. Open last year, not Xander. I had a different event on my mind when it came to Xander Schoffley. But nonetheless, if he wants to win this event, going to do those things that you are talking about here. Before we let you go, Patrick, got to ask you about Shane Lowry. Maybe not the most, the cleanest golf, but if nothing else, he is certainly entertaining. He was kind of throwing a bit of a fit out there at one point, was banging his golf club on the green because he didn't like his tee shot. He's knocking over boom mics at Oakmont. But when you look at the score here, Patrick, you kind of feel the frustration.
You do, and you see 3 double bogeys, 4 bogeys, and an eagle. The first one ever in U.S. Open history at Oakmont on number 3, of course. So Shane Lowry in the history books, whether he likes it or not. The time he was throwing that temper tantrum by the greens was actually one of the few pars he made. He chipped in for par on the short par 4 17th. But for Lowry, he's a guy who on paper you think should contend in these major championships, especially a winner there in 19 at Royal Portrush. He's accurate off the tee. He's very precise with the iron play. The short game, everyone talks about his hands. But for one reason or another, when he hits a little snag, a little bit of adversity, we've seen it in major championships, at the Open Championship when he was in contention last year, at Troon over the weekend, at Quail Hollow when he got a couple of bad breaks and ultimately missed the cut at the PGA Championship last month. And then today at the U.S. Open, shooting 9 over 79. It just seems like the adversity, his shoulders start to slump immediately, and you juxtapose that against the guys like Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schoffley, Bryson DeChambeau, who kind of take it head on and are able to power through. And so for Lowry, the tools are all there. I think just getting past this point, it all has to do with the mental aspect of the game. That
9 over is the highest opening round score to par in his PGA Tour career. So the good news for Shane Lowry is it's only up from here, I guess down if you're talking golf terminology, but you can only get better is my point. Patrick McDonald joining us from Oakmont, giving us a look at round 1 of the U.S. Opening going on this weekend, the U.S. Open, I should say, going on this weekend. Get caught up on all the latest in the golf world. You can scan that QR code on your screen to check out the Early Wedge, our podcast that pairs sports betting with golf. Check it out now.